Yeah. Felt good.
No! This is the last show.
Yeah. Break your wrist, break your knuckle on the last show. Yeah, Mark Ryder out in the crowd.
You gonna sign
That's great. Yeah.
I from Metallica presents to you a guitar. Whoa!
Here you go. This is for you. Whoa! Hold it. Stop. Hold it. Put it in your hands. It's okay. I'll sign it.
Can I be the guitarist now?
I'll be the guitarist tomorrow.
Don't cry. Oh, poor Tony.
You got to share it though, all right?
Yeah. Share the pickups.
All right. Welcome to America. All right. There you go, brother. All right.
All right.
Awesome. All right, brother.
Great show.
All right.
Great show. Forever.
That's for keeping the faith, you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for being.
Do you have a good time?
Oh,
Yeah, it was
once in a
It was
lifetime.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah.
Right on. Good one.
Totally worth it.
Okay. Write some good riffs. There's still some good riffs in there.
Okay.
Bring them out.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, we'll do.
All right, man.
We'll
Thanks.
do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can we take a photo, guys? Picture, please.
Yeah.
Whatever we say is not enough.
A little stinky.
It's okay. It's okay. That's what we want. Yeah. Man.
All right. Cool. All right. We'll see you at a show somewhere. Keep us on the list.
We'll open for you.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever, depending the area of the world you're in. This is Damian Maynard, one of the hosts for you this evening, with Jamie McNichol and Marwan from Acrassicauda. How are you this evening, Jamie?
Good morning, good evening, and I am doing marvelously well. It's starting to rain here in Australia. Hallelujah! Might get all the bushfires extinguished by the rain. So I'm happy. The rain is finally here.
That is awesome. We have one of the most prolific bands with us this evening, Jamie, Acrassicauda. They're from Iraq, and they've made their way to the United States, and we're so pleased to have them with us. How are you this evening, Marwan?
Thank you guys for having me. I'm doing great, thank you. And I'm happy for the rain too in Australia as well. You guys needed it. It's horrible what's happening there. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marwan, and it's a pleasure. With the conversations we had messaging one another over the last week and a half, your gratitude and your prayers is felt down here in Australia because we have so much devastation, as you know, with all the fires and the wildlife and people's houses being destroyed. we want to honor you by showing your respect and your gratitude towards Australia, Marwan, and thank you so much.
The honor is all mine. It's really horrible what's happening there. I mean, like, you see the news and you see it on Instagram and social media. It's really
Yeah,
tragic what's happening. So
yes,
my praise are with you guys, and my thoughts are with you, and thankfully, like that at least a bit of water and rain that might assist with the rescue and the help, because the devastation numbers are huge. It's horrific.
it is. Now,
We lost
Damien,
so many animals and whatnot there.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
like one.
yeah, over 500 million animals has been wiped out due to the fire. Imagine most of the population of the koala breed is now extinct. It's devastating. They died in the bushfire. So we're talking about 80,000 plus koalas just destroyed, that gone. But hopefully, just hopefully, those that are remaining can start breeding again once they get recovered, once they get cleared to go back into the wildlife, and hopefully they start breeding again because that is one of our national symbols is the koala.
Fingers are crossed. Fingers are crossed. I mean, like, this is crazy that animals reaching to an extinction
Yeah,
in such a short period of time. That just tells you like the amount of devastation that is happening right now, currently. I mean, fingers are crossed. Start breeding, guys, please.
yeah. Now, Damien, as you know, I've been doing a podcast for the last 10 years on heavy metal, everything and everything metal. I've been interviewing a lot of bands around the world and been in magazines. I've been concerts galore. I'm like a walking billboard when it comes to the heavy metal, rock, punk, whatever you want to call it. But Damien, just before Christmas last year, you and I decided to spice things up a bit. We're going to bring band back on the show, but this time it's a different approach. It's now called the Rock Diaries, where we actually not just talk about the music, but we also talk about their lifestyle and how they view the world today as they see it. Now, the first question I want to ask Marwan, we know the background due to the documentary that came out called Metal in Baghdad. But there's one vital information that probably didn't get touched on in that documentary, which I'd like to ask. Growing up as a child and in a war torn country, how did you get involved with heavy metal? How did that approach to you, and how did you get in into that? Because it is against the law in Baghdad or in Iraq to listen to heavy metal. You get persecuted, you get murdered. So how were you introduced to heavy metal growing up in Iraq?
I mean, the the short answer is, I think Faisal mentioned that, the lead singer, back in the day, when he said psychologically it was super, like, it was very natural that we listened to heavy metal, and extreme situation acquire like extreme taste in music. Uh, but the longest version of it is basically the way I grew up, and most of the guys, uh, that was back in the 80s in Iraq, and that was like before the boycott, before the war. Uh, at the time, there was still leftovers, I would say, like, of music, the Western music that the elders kind of like had. And my dad, for an example, had like a lot of records of Frank Sinatra and so on and so forth, and that kind of introduced me to that kind of music growing up. And we just felt in weird ways like poetically was more elaborating than our kind of like native language, or just because we lacked the interest to it. But growing up, I guess at some point I was bootlegs mainly, and then it was probably the easiest way is somebody goes to nearby countries. I would say Jordan, Lebanon, countries in the Middle East that had an access to export and import and access to travel, and they'll bring a cassette, and that cassette will literally, I mean, I kid you not, that cassette will go through a process of recording over and over again until it gets like spread out between the rest of us. So something like I would say like Scorpions. I mean, it will reach couple or 3 years after its release date, and sometimes even longer than that. So it was really hard to get some everything or anything up to date, but we'll get it like a couple of years later, and then people just we had a strong community because also it was a small community, so the community was pretty strong, and we kind of helped each other out, whether it was VHSs or cassettes.
So you really got a lot of bootleg music, and that's what turned you on to the heavy metal scene.
It wasn't just because it was there. You had to look for it, and you had to kind of like an underground club. So you had to
Oh.
really look for it and show interest that we used to brag about like our knowledge in music to other people to see test the water and see how much they knew about it. So it was more like a cult kind of thingy. Maybe, yeah. I would say it was more like a cult. But for me, uh, I think it was just that psychologically, I think like one of the first bands that I ever listened to was Sepultura, and I was like Roots, and I was like I just wanted to bang my head against the wall, and I didn't even know back then there's something called like headbanging or mosh pit or anything like that. It just uh, it felt good.
So, Marwan, as growing up, was drumming your first instrument of choice, or did you have some other interests?
Uh, Basically, at the beginning, I always wanted to be a guitar player. I don't think anybody wants to be a drummer in the beginning, but I wanted to have like this little toy guitar that I used to just play around with. But at the point when I became a drummer, I used to have these bongos that I used to play. That was my dad's, but I wasn't drummer by no mean. And I think it wasn't until uh, Faisal was trying to start a band at the time with another friend, and they did this. Probably he wouldn't want me to talk about it, but he wanted to do the show, and they announced the show, and we were ready, and I was super excited. I think I was like 13 or 14 back then, and I was super excited to go see my first ever show because I'd never seen a band perform live before.
Right.
And I gathered my friends, and we're supposed to go there, and they just canceled last minute, saying the drummer broke his foot, which kind of was a lie. We knew it, and it was really hard to get a drummer in Iraq because the sound, because it was kind of like the obvious. You can tuck your guitar away, but the drums is loud. They'll attract attention, and like you guys said before, uh, that kind of music was a frowned upon, to say the least. So you kind of like, you're giving away your location and everything with the
Yeah.
drums. So I kind of like, you know, took it upon me like I was like, okay, if I cannot see a band, I'll be that band.
Yeah.
First time performing on stage. So I kind of risked it and got a drums and started learning from there.
Now, just a
It
bit
was
of
more like sorry, it was more like a sacrifice.
yeah. Well, that's a good thing because many people start young learning to play a musical instrument. I remember when I was 9 years of age, I started to play the drums,
Oh,
and
cool.
and that got me into a jazz band in high school, and then a rock band, and then I did some other stuff as well. But Marwan, I just want to ask, what was education like back in Iraq, like, is it strict? Is there a strict policy in the education system?
Very much so, yes. And back then, the education system. So I mean, I just want to clarify. We kind of like we call it ourselves generation of war,
Yeah.
because when we grew up back in the 80s, Iraq and Iran was in a war,
No.
and then 90, 91, and then 98, and so on and so forth till 2003. So that's kind of like what we experienced, and the situation in the country at the time was kind of falling apart. Uh, and education system was one of it. So yeah, the education system was super strict. Uh, there was like violence allowed, like a teacher can hit a student, that's okay. And it was tough, like to stay in school and to keep your grades up, and also the situation with the electricity, because we didn't have electricity, so studying at night was super hard too as well. So all in all, it was strict, it was tough, yes. It was a
Yeah.
good education system, that it's again the leftover from years of prosper that we probably got between the 1920 till, I would say, late na- 90, like the 70s.
Yeah.
That's when was like some growth happening, and that was like the leftovers of that growth, and then we experienced the decline, whether it was an education system or judicial system, during our lifetime.
Yeah. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, the regime, or the Saddam Hussein regime, started in the late 70s, right? Against Iran.
Mhm.
And
That's
that's and that snowballed on from there, but it didn't really hit the road till the 90s, leading up into 9/11, basically. But the thing is, growing up as a child, you would not know what fear is. You would know as a teenager, but going to school at a young age as a child, you very rarely know what fear really is. Right now, can you comprehend the fear that you were growing up compared to what it was back then?
No, to be honest, I think one of the symptoms, like I like to call it, after going through like trauma and the fight and flight mode for such a long time, and being on a survival kind of instinct the whole time, it's really it catches up with you later in life, as you start like to kind of go through, everything happen, and a lot of it is actually blur. And I think this is also part of like the survival mechanism,
Yeah.
is to forget. We tend to forget the bad things that happen to us in order to go on. But I really, and it makes me sad, because a lot of younger kids are going through kind of the same situation right now. We thought it was just like that. We didn't have any point of reference. So because it was such an enclosed country that no information comes in and no information goes out,
Yeah.
uh, we couldn't comprehend the fact that, oh, like other kids, what would other kids do? And not until later, when we start watching, like, and mental health with that we start yearning like to the fact that, oh, I can grow my hair long, or without being, harassed or bullied. Or I remember one time, uh, I almost got arrested for having long hair, uh, that I had to beg the guy literally to be, and it wasn't even long. It wasn't a ponytail. It was just normal hair, and
Yeah.
and I had to beg the guy to be like, I swear to God, I'm just gonna go to the barber right now. You just caught me like right now going to the barber. So no, it's honestly the younger version of me, uh, went through it. The older version of me cannot explain it. I'm still trying to find
Yeah.
like leaks and answers still today.
I
Yeah.
think that might, I think that might actually expound over everywhere that across the world that we live, because when we're younger, we cannot understand the intricacies of war and everything else that encompasses the political spectrum, because we're young. That's not what we're living in. We're living in our own time. And so when those things enter into our lives, it's it's exponential in how it affects us. I didn't know what war was in the 80s or anything, but I know that it affected other people. Now I know that it affected other people. But then we were just trying to live our lives as children the best that we could.
That's true. I totally agree with that. Uh, you don't have the information and you don't have the tools, and I don't think anybody can prepare you for that. As a kid, you're not supposed to process that kind of information. You want to learn,
Right.
want to grow, and sort of a natural habitat. But when you need to learn, when you get pushed to understand that uh, these things happen, and there's as a kid, if you do a mistake, basically you get punished, and you think that whatever you did, punishment should fit the crime and stuff like that. But as a kid, growing up, that affects your parents, it affects your community. So being the sort of weakest link, just because of your size and your age and your comprehension, that also adds up the total on that. And it kind of like it interferes with the way you grow. And as a kid, I mean, we learn the most in the youngest age in our lives. And that's like the rest of it, you get a job, you start paying rent, you got to worry about food, you got to worry about family. So mostly like on a co-pilot. But the first 10 to 15 years are super important to that. But then you got to understand what politics is, and you got to understand what war is, and you got to understand inflation and deflation and boycott and so much things that happens that you really don't process it. Like not until later years in my life that I was like starting to trying actually attempting to process that.
And not only that, you did say in the documentary, or someone did, saying that the band is not political. But everything around you guys that was going on at the time, when you guys were starting, it was more like it's a fight for survival here. We need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, it's honestly wasn't political. I mean, people tried to, and everything that happened with the band, it's because the political situation. I mean, uh, we said it's not political because we didn't believe that what was politics, you know? I mean,
But it was
it was
in
politics,
some fashion.
yeah, but it was personal for me, like, and the rest of the guys. You can name it politics, you can name it whatever it is. It was just personal because as kids, we didn't understand what politics was, you know? We thought, politics is just a fancy word, for, oh shit, like, we cannot practice. There's no this, there's no electricity. Oh, we're being called devil worshippers and stuff like that.
Right.
And everything in back then, I thought politics is, civilized basically. It's a way to like to kind of solve disagreements and stuff like that, and to govern and set rules and stuff like that. But nothing out there was a jungle, you know.
Yeah.
So it wasn't political. It was, and we weren't trying to like to write a narrative for that. We're just basically taking everything that happened and we just put it on paper, and that was that, and sing it. Like literally, there was almost like zero filter happening in that. It wasn't like meant to be poetic. It wasn't meant to be. And the part of politics, basically, even though that you don't accept it, but still force itself upon you in the different shapes of forms, we kind of thought that the band, it was the one pure thing that we had in our life that we can have a control over, because everything else was out of our control. So we didn't want to taint that with you know the outwards politics, religion, stuff like that.
And you did, you know, I have to say that over the past decade, I've listened to your music. Is so poetic and so beautiful and so I, it's exemplary in the fact that you took what you knew as children, as people growing up, and turned it into something beautiful. And I don't think maybe that you guys realized it at the time, but it's just it shows how people can go through certain situations and make something beautiful out of that situation, even though it's a horrible a horrible
Yeah, horrible disadvantage. That thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we didn't know. You're right. I mean, we didn't know. Honestly, we didn't know. We didn't think it. We didn't overthink it much. And that was also the beauty of being a youngster, you know? You have this energy, but you don't like, as you grow older, you start contemplate and you start thinking, and consequences are there. And looking at it now, would I have done it? No. I mean, I asked myself before, and I was like, no, I wouldn't have done it. But the younger version of me was, well, let's just do that. Sounds a great idea.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
it was a great idea. I mean, you guys are a great band, you put forth such feeling in your music, and it just it is really inspiring.
It truly is. It truly is. I mean, Damien, when you mentioned the band to me 5 years ago, and I said, I've heard of this band, let me go back to my catalogue and let me pull out some, I don't know, EPs or singles that was floating around. And what do you know? They did do an EP, and more than anything, that's the magic of the internet now, YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
that's my favorite.
yeah, but now, like, we go back to the 80s and 90s, especially in Iraq. They had no freaking internet back in those days. None. They might have had pirate radio, like Marwan was talking about, bootlegging cassette tapes over the border from other countries and that. But most of the stuff, and you will agree too, Damien, most of the stuff in the 80s was by word of mouth.
That's true.
And we had these magazines that you can buy at the newsagent to read up on the latest music news that was there. I mean, I don't know if Iraq had those type of magazines, like
Heavy metal.
well, not just heavy metal, but like some form of music magazine that talked about the latest album that's coming out or the latest single, because most of the stuff that was in the 80s and early 90s before the internet, most people only heard it from word of mouth.
That's true. Yeah, I mean that would be Tony actually. He was the he was the library basically. He's the one who collected magazines, and we used to go to his house, whenever he allows us, like once a week or like once a month, to take a look at Metal Hammer or whatever magazine he was able to snatch or get a good deal on. And some of them were like 5 or 6 years old, but we used to devour every article and every when you read something, because this is like the one thing that you're gonna probably have for the next, I don't know, 2 to 3 months or maybe a year. You just read that, like every single article, even the small writings with the addition and stuff like that, and we used to memorize them.
Yeah. I mean, did the band actually start off a cover band with
Oh,
a
never, never,
No, never,
never.
never. No,
That
even
that was
yeah, go on.
that that was never uh like that was never on the table actually, and we never were interested in it, to be honest. I mean, like, just to speak on behalf of the guys, we actually never considered. The only reason we did covers is because we thought that, like, it would sell more, to have a point of reference
Yeah,
uh, to the people. But mainly, like, I remember we're just writing and writing and writing music and riffs, and obviously was like heavily influenced by the Giants at the time. But the idea was from the beginning: write your own lyrics, do your own arrangements, and write your own music, basically.
That
yeah,
is beautiful.
that is true.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, because I want to touch on this for a second, if I can, Damien.
Yeah.
Looking on the outside, looking in. Like, we're on the outside of Iraq, but we're always looking in, and we see what's on the freaking idiot box called the TV, mainstream media, and it's all propaganda. It's all propaganda just by the way they translate their news to the masses. Mind you, Marwan and the boys from the band were actually living there at the time. So they probably can tell us a lot more than what we can probably even think of. I mean, we're only a little grasshopper compared to what these guys gone through before they decided to leave, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Marwan, I just want to ask, what was really, let's tell the audience, not
Yes, sir.
Damien and I, not Damien and I, because we got a bit of a hint what was going on, because we don't believe in the mainstream media. we actually do a little bit of research. But Marwan, I want to ask, what was it really like? What was really going on? Besides all the propaganda, which basically was propaganda, but what was really going on around the time 2001 is to 2003?
What was going on during when?
Around about 2001 to 2003.
Before the invasion.
The war. Oh, okay. Before 2003. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
you probably no, that's fine. I mean, you probably have more ideas because you got like the news a little bit, but so before 2003, for the longest time, I remember was like the mass destruction thing was happening, and I remember vividly me as a kid looking at the TV and seeing the United Nations, NATO, like going in and out, trying to find whatever they were like talking about. And I was like literally looking around like at my dad and my friends and my family in my neighborhood, and how poor we were, and how unsophisticated. I mean, not to put it down, great people, but we just didn't have that. And I was laughing. I was like, but it didn't really feel scary to me until, I mean, we didn't think anything gonna happen. We just thought like, oh, okay, like, Iraq needs to comply. They're gonna do that, and that's that. Because what are the chances of like another war?
A big
Within
war.
exactly. And I'm like one of the few people sometimes see like, seeing, whatever, I wouldn't call it Rome burning, but to see our country like, just falling down, and the government, and now it's becoming more of an occurring thing. But back then, what are the chances of this happening to me? When something bad happens and you're like, oh, it's not going to happen to me,
Yeah.
You always have this faith. So this is what we kind of agreed upon. And we're still playing, we're still performing, and all of a sudden, what happened, I remember, is like reporters start coming in that we never seen foreigners before. I mean, we didn't never seen white people before, and all of a sudden we see reporters from Germany, and they start like they start like getting interest. That was right before the war. I remember like German magazines start taking interest in us, and that was during the time we were like preparing for a show in 2003, and they came over and they filmed the show, and I think that was like early that year, like a month before March. That's when it happened. And till then, we are like just performing, playing music. We kind of like almost were happy that there's like finally there's foreigners like daring to come to Iraq, and we're engaging with them, and we're talking to them and get to know like a little bit about the outside world, outside the bubble. But till then, it was okay. And then when it happened, I remember seeing in my neighborhood the artilleries and the tanks flogging in. That's when it hit me that, oh, like I don't want to peep, like it's gonna hit the
Oh,
fan.
you don't have to worry about beeps. We don't
Ah,
have
okay,
any beeps
okay. Then it is
You
a
can speak your
true.
mind.
Okay, before
It
you
is
go on,
rock and roll.
yeah, Marwan, before you go on, it's unedited, unscripted, so it's uncensored. You can say whatever the fuck you want to say.
Hey, hell the fuck yeah, man. That's awesome. It is a true metal show then. Yeah, man. That's awesome. Yeah, and then until like the shit hit the fan, we didn't really know. And you kind of like again with the survival mechanism, you're always like hoping that this shit's going to be evaded, and it didn't. And that's when I remember seeing the military in the streets, and I'm like, oh, this is not happening. So I
And
remember telling
that's prior to your
that's
the
prior
place
to
where you were rehearsing that got bombed, right?
yeah, the place got bombed like a while after. But back then, the funny thing is we switched practice space just because uh, we found like a little bit bigger space, so we started rehearsing at that space. But then we went back again to the old space like a while before it get bombed. Uh, so we only switched that space for I would say like about 6 months. But throughout the whole time, since the genesis of the whole band, we always practiced at the one place that got bombed. And yeah, and then it started happening. And I mean, I kid you not, that was like I mean, I got to see person hair turning gray in one day. Like that's not even an exaggeration. Like the horror of it. And that was basically it.
What's going on there, Jamie? Is that you?
Yeah,
What's that? What was that?
Just like a noise. Oh, now it's fine, I guess.
Oh, that's my
It
partner.
is.
Yeah, that's my partner's chair. She's got a massive earache and she's rocking back and forth, so she'll be okay. She'll be okay. The weather just changed here. Like I said, it's raining now, and her body's not getting used to it. It's supposed to be our summer, and it's like freaking winter at the moment.
That's
But anyway,
amazing. Let it rain.
it is. 1 minute you get to the high 40 degrees Celsius mark, and what it is right now, it's around about 15, 16 degrees Celsius. So you got that massive shape shift. You got the high extreme to the low extreme. It doesn't stay the same. So
I mean, do we believe in global warming? Or this
Well,
is just
Global
Earth?
isn't a real thing.
well, let's have
It's
a look.
just weather.
Yeah, I believe the weather is controlled by something. whatever
Sure.
that is
Yeah.
we're still trying to figure out, because how can the bushfires keep burning the way it is and not rain for months, and all of a sudden it rains and it drops the temperature down dramatically, and then the next week it skyrockets back up to the high humidity again. It doesn't make sense.
That's the crazy world we live in.
It is.
It's very interesting period of time that we're living in. A lot of
It
things
is.
are happening.
It is. Now, Marwan, I just want to ask this. Going back to all that craziness in back in Iraq, what was the final decision that you decided to make for yourself and your family to leave Iraq to go to Damascus in Syria?
Um, that actually wasn't the plan at all. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
the plan was like, okay, now we survived the war.
Yeah.
The country is destroyed, but we survived it. We made it somehow. And now what are we gonna do? And like any good, like any good metalheads, we're like, let's make a show. Let's let's go. Let's start practicing again, guys. And we're kind of like worried at this point because the whole looting thingy and the burning, and then the started the civil war, the Sunni and the Shia kind of thingy. And we were like, okay, fuck all, let's just practice. So we start practicing again, and then we made a show right after the war,
Yeah.
and this show was like, got like good coverage uh, back then. But then the idea was I didn't leave the country until 2006.
Yeah. And then that show that you're mentioning, was that the one that you used the generator and the power cutting out?
No, actually, that was the one before this one.
Oh yeah, the one down in Damascus where you were playing the in
No, that
another host.
was
Yeah.
no, sorry, that was so prior to war, we did the 2003 show, and that was like the kind of fancy show that we felt like we made it in Iraq. We were very much influenced by the Ascendant
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Symphony.
Yeah.
So I was like, we should do one like we had like this old symphony hall in Iraq, and I was like, we should do one in a symphony hall,
Yeah.
and without the symphony, of course. And we did that one 2003 prior to the war, and right after the war, we did later that year, I think, or probably early 2004, we did another show, and then we did the final show in Iraq where the generator went off.
Yeah.
That was featured in the movie.
So just go back a bit. The cons or the gig that you played at, which one had the Saddam Hussein song or dedicated to? Which one was that one? And I want to,
That
I
was,
want, I
that
want you
was
to.
the
Yeah.
that was only we played it in the first and the second show, and
Yeah.
basically the teacher, he was more like a spiritual mentor to us. Saad, he used to live. I mean, he used to live, breathe, and work and teach music right above us,
Yeah.
and he became more like the godfather of the band at the time. And he was like, he's the only one who we knew that played his show back in the day live,
Yeah.
and he used to tell us these horror stories about how the agents or intelligence just walked up and they saw them and they stopped the show and they had to take IDs, and those people
Was that massacre?
no, it wasn't massacre. So it was we kind of in a way we did like two songs. So the ex-member of the band, Waleed, wrote that song called Youth of Iraq, and that was like the Saddam praising song. And he was like, basically what he told us is, write one song just in case if they come and ask you, because they will come and ask you to translate the lyrics to see what you guys are about. So write one song to praise him just so you can play the rest of the show in peace and not have anyone arrested. So that was basically the advice. And I mean, in a way, I was like, okay, I'm going to write Massacre. That's what I'm going to do. And then, you know, Walid, God bless him, he was like, I'm going to write the Youth of Iraq song, which is like, you know, the praising song. And we did that like twice, I think, in the first show and the second show. And then after the second show, like, there was nothing, like we didn't like see anybody getting arrested, and we were like, okay, let's take that song out.
Now, we have to fast forward to this part because when you actually decided to leave Iraq, did you got a job? You did some waitering or table service, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the money that you were making was 100 a month.
That was about the money.
Yeah, it was bad. But did you start when you actually did leave Iraq and you started to make that money? Did you see a slight hope of freedom compared to what you see now?
Not in the beginning, no. I mean, so the idea was like leaving for 6 months. So even when I left the country, I literally took a duffel bag, 2 duffel bags. One had my double pedals in them, and one and sticks, and the other one had clothes, and third bag that had symbols, like a bunch of broken symbols in them. So the idea was like, I'm gonna leave, because I wasn't prepared. Like, you know, I left in 2006, and here I am. I never went back.
Yeah.
But I wasn't prepared. So like the idea was like to go 6 months, hopefully wait it out, because mind you, we still had hope that the situation will be better.
Yeah.
And went for 6 months, and then after the 6 months, start hearing my parents saying, stay longer, stay longer, stay longer, just wait it out, stay longer. And then, you know, time passes by, and then I ended up like, you know, I was like, okay, I need to get a job, which is kind of risky because you don't have documentation, like, you know, to work there.
Right.
But, so you get a job, and then I used to live in a basement, and then all of a sudden, Faisal and Firas decided to join in after like 4 months, I think, or something like that, because the situation was getting even worse. So there was no hope, really. The hope, like, to stay outside wasn't there because, you know, at the time I was like 21. I thought like, you know, I had a job there. Kind of like, you know, now I'm living in a basement. I don't have sheets. I don't have blankets. I don't have anything. So it wasn't like an ideal situation at the time. And not until the guys came in, that's when I was like, okay, so I guess we're staying longer in here, because you guys saying like, you know, the situation is getting even worse. And they were like, yeah, it is getting worse. I don't think there's a hope of going back. So I was like, okay, now we gotta think otherwise.
Yeah, because when the guy did actually come to your basement, I suppose, it was like a family reunion, because you guys didn't play for so long. You all been separated in one way, shape, or form. But when you all came back together in Damascus, it started to get the wheels into motion, even though there was still plenty of hard times in front of you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, that was, I remember like we're doing like the whole putting our hands on each other's hands, and we're like, you know, walking down the street with a falafel sandwich, and we're like, let's fucking do it, man. Let's do it. We're gonna.
I love falafel.
Yeah, and we're like, let's do it, you know. And that's when hope was coming back, because none of us really wanted to leave the band. This is the only thing that we were sure of, and nothing. No house was. No house was assurance. No job was assurance. No relation was assurance. No country.
Nothing was safe.
Nothing was safe. Nothing was safe. So the only thing was safe, and the only thing that we felt that we had control over was the band. And
Right.
there was like the four of us, and we're like, okay, you know what? Let's try to give it one more push.
Yeah.
So
And
it was
yeah, go on.
you, Fazal,
For us
Matt?
and Tony.
oh, Tony, and yeah.
Because
Yeah, no, me and Faisal, we met first. So we basically kind of started the band, and we had like the third friend of ours, Walid, and then later Tony joined in, and Tony brought for us.
what a massive guitarist Tony has become. He must have a gift of God. The talent that Tony has playing that guitar, it just
No,
oh,
no,
not Tony.
man.
It wasn't
No,
Tony.
no. I mean, it's not a gift. He just practiced a lot. I
Yes,
mean,
that's what I mean.
it's
That's what I
horrible.
mean.
It's horrible being roommate next to Tony. He practiced a lot.
That's what I
Just
mean. That's what I mean.
chromatics like non-stop.
That's
He's a
what
machine. He's a machine.
That's what I mean. That guitar is his craft work. That's his tool. That is craft. It might actually, that guitar might actually speak back to Tony and say, hey, put your finger on this fret and play this string and you get this sound. But, you know, that's him. But, no, but what a under, the word that I'm looking for is that he is such an underachiever. It's not what, you know what I mean? He's just so,
overachiever. He's an overachiever.
no, well, no, not underachiever. He's, what's that word? You know how you got these top ranked guitarists like Eddie Van Halen and
He's relentless in what he does. He's
but-
relentless.
but Tony, right? He's under, what's that freaking word?
I'm gonna let you find it.
Yeah,
Under
I'll find it.
guitar.
No. It's just like not an underachiever, but he's like an underdog. You know what I mean? An
Yeah.
underdog. Instead of,
He is a superstar in his own way. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what the deal with Tony is, I mean, we never thought he was human because in real life he sometimes acts like a machine, but like some sort of like a I don't know, like a cyborg, because the way Tony is, Tony loves to practice. I mean, practice, and that helped us so much getting to know Tony and to be with Tony. It kind of set the scale a little bit higher for us because we had the passion, but we didn't really have like the know-how to do it. And Tony and for us, they both were taught under that same teacher that gave us that bad advice. The great teacher though.
Yeah.
And they both studied under him. And that guy was an amazing guitar player. He would like literally sometimes you'll think like he's an Ingve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he taught Tony, and Tony took it to heart that he was going to continue practicing. And that's why it was so much fun to play with Tony because I would be like, this part, let's just play it all night long. And Tony will be like, okay. You know, just like literally just like pressing a record and turning off, pressing stop and play, stop and play.
Yeah. Before we go into you coming to America, I'm going to jump straight into this. Everyone's seen the YouTube clip of Metallica, James Hetfield coming off the stage, going backstage, and his hand
Wonderful, Zal. Yeah.
goes right up to Tony with the guitar and signs the guitar. Look at the face of Tony. It's like he's saying God or some type of
That was Faisal. That was Faisal actually.
Yeah.
That was Faisal. Yeah.
can you go through the story, because you was standing right beside it when it all went down? Just go through the story and what was going through your mind at the time.
Well, just to give you like a quick recap on that story that not a lot of people actually know about, why the face is the face. Faisal grew up worshiping James Hetfield. I mean, the way he tried to talk, the way he dressed, the way he tried. The first time I met him, he was trying to build an Explorer guitar, and I shit you not, I walk into his room, and he had this model of Explorer, and made out of like some piece of wood. Didn't look pretty at all. You can tell it's an Explorer, but it was literally, you can tell it's a piece of wood that somebody trying to mimic an Explorer guitar, which he later got from James Hetfield. But that's the story, that Faisal was so obsessed about, not Metallica. I mean, he loves Metallica, the older stuff, the Kill 'Em All stuff, the Unjustice for All, but he loved especially James Hetfield. That we sometimes we would tell him, we'd be like, dude, stop, like just, you're being weird. I'm like, we're getting kind of freaked out. You need to see a doctor, because he always so for him to see James Hetfield first in the flesh.
Yeah. And did any of you guys knew that was going to happen, or was that just a spur of a moment thing?
No, actually, Vice reached out a few days before that was happening, and they were like, we're taking you guys to a Metallica show.
Okay.
And the whole meet and greet actually was coincident, like not a coincidence, but we didn't know, it was a surprise. So walking in there, and I remember I just arrived to the country like 2 days prior to that, like literally 2 days before, and I was just getting over the jet lag and the sickness. But remember, we're going there, and we weren't even like hyped up about it. We were like, oh, whatever, gonna see Metallica, so on, whatever. And I remember this excitement and anxiety and fear descending upon us as we start going like into this elevators that had TVs that were showing the crowd. We hearing the roar of the crowd, and descending even further, like to the basement kind of section where the band is at, and going through the lobbies. And then we start seeing, I believe it was Machine Head playing with them. And we start seeing the boxes of the cabins, like for Machine Head, with the logos on it. And then as we walked further, we start seeing the symbol, like the Metallica symbol. Yep. And that's when we start, like, my hands got sweaty. I started having cold sweats. And I'm looking at the guys, and Faisal's like, hey, I'm having my mouth is dry. And we start getting scared until, like, I heard James Hetfield's voice, and I was like, oh, fuck, that's him. There's no way back now.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to run away.
So basically, you're like a little kid at a candy store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know those moments.
I mean, if candy would be like the best candy ever,
Now, was Metallica your first big band you saw live anyway?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Actually, no. I stand corrected. It was Testament in Istanbul.
Testament. Testament. Chuck Billy. Ladies and gentlemen, Testament will be here in Australia in a couple of months' time for Download Festival. If you haven't got your tickets, go and see the Testament. They're also doing a sideshow. Up in Brisbane in Australia, so go and see Testament. And also, just some latest news on Testament, they will be releasing a new album this year.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome.
So
they're beasts. I love them. I love their thrash.
Yeah. Now let's wind the clock a bit. And also, guys, we will be playing that video once this episode gets uploaded to our channel. So that video of the guitar being handed over by James Hetfield. We will pick it up for you guys, and we will put it in this episode, so all you guys can see exactly what was going on. But anyway, let's wind the clock back a bit. How did all of you guys' arrangement from going from where you were to America? How did that all come apart to you?
It was crazy. I mean, it was one culture shock after another. I mean, being in Istanbul kind of prepared us to it a little bit because Istanbul was such a big city. There was a fair enough metal scene happening, and also uh, it was like the gate, like the from between the Middle East and the West in a way. So it's kind of like stuck. It's kind of in the middle. So that kind of like helped us actually, but it wasn't. We weren't that prepared to everything that happened after, in terms of like the band and stuff, and also like all the whole thing that comes with it.
Yeah.
All the hype.
Yeah, the hype. Yeah, yeah.
So, what was it like? So, just correct me if I'm wrong. Was everything going so fast forward that you just had to take a deep breath and say, "Hang on a minute, we're not actually ready for this," or were you prepared and you were ready and going, "Fuck yeah, let's get on the parachute. We're going for a ride. We're not going back."
I believe the second one. I should have done the first one that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I believe, but I definitely went for the second one and the guys as well. Maybe what one or two of the guys said, let's just take a breather and see what we're doing, and like probably we were split in half. Like half of us were like, let's fucking go for it because that's it. We just want to play because we're so hungry to play.
Not only that, but so much was going on in the Middle East at the time, and it's I can't even imagine what it was like for you guys to not be able to play openly and have the recognition that you should have had because you weren't allowed. That's just very hard for me to fathom.
Yeah, and not only that, Damien, the band was around for about a decade before they actually released their first studio album.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like it's just I just can't imagine having to hide underground for so long and not be recognized for who they were because of political situations, because of situations that inhibited them from being who they really were.
Yeah,
And that's just really hard for me to understand.
That's crazy. I mean, it's like literally. I mean, being in the band, I was like 16. I mean, I'm 35 right now. 16 or 17. That's when I was joined the band, and that's when we started the band. And I mean, honestly, I didn't know anything else other than that at that point. That was like my rock, basically.
It's your life.
Everything. No, it wasn't my life. My life was shitty. Sorry to say. My life, the reason I had the band was my life, because of my life.
Right.
But
no, I get it.
That was the sanctuary. That was the hope. That was like the thing that we had that to go back to when everything goes wrong in your life. And there was plenty of doors open, like for things to go wrong in there. But yeah, for X amount of years, like you guys mentioned, that were finally in 2009, we were able to release a professional recording. We tried that in Turkey, we tried it in Damascus, we tried it in Iraq too, but none of them were professional. None of them we didn't have a producer. I mean, shout out mentioning Testament, shout out to Mr. Alex Skolnick to be a big part of it in that record. But till then, it took us like really solid amount of time, and plus 3 years of between Damascus and Istanbul where we weren't able to do anything.
Yeah. Now, Marwan, did you, when you actually did go to America, now, from what my understanding, around the time, even now, people do look down on Middle Eastern people, right? Will you agree?
Yes.
Most of them do. So my question is, what type of barriers did you guys face when you actually did get into America? What was the challenges for you compared to what it was back at home?
I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, probably we had it better because we hung out with the right crowd, you know?
Okay. Yep.
So one thing about metal, and not to this any other styles, with all due respect for all styles of music, but
Yep.
metal is an anti-fad kind of thing. So
Fuck yeah. There is no boundaries in freaking metal, no matter what religion, what race, or what background you come. You're all a family. You're freaking right. You're freaking right.
100%, and we were lucky. I see it as we were like, actually we kind of were spoiled to the fact that coming from this background and everything we're saying, and all of a sudden move into this loving, supportive, always got your back kind of thing, crowd that also you're well respected for, because they appreciate the fact that you love metal so much that you're willing to risk everything for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would have probably done it and they didn't have the chance probably, or they weren't like, as a messed up situation as we were. So there's a lot of appreciation for that. And we were like super lucky to be around such a crowd that we were like, okay, this is home. Like, I don't want to work. I just want to hang out with you guys all the time,
Yeah. Hey, more importantly, you like to be able to go to a restaurant and have a meal, not worrying about looking over your shoulder that it's going to get blown up every 5 seconds.
That too.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, just being able to. I mean, one of the biggest things is like dive bars, just being able like to listen, because we all come from a background that we're into like classic rock, so we all like love music, Van Halen, and
Rush
stuff like
and
that.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Rush, Rat, Cinderella, all these bands that were like, love rock, we love classic rock, sometimes even glam. I mean, White Snake and stuff like that, and being able just to have this one thing, like simple as it may be, like like drink while listening to that music, and having a
Yep.
chit chat, it was like such a heaven.
Yeah, because drinking is outlawed in the Middle East as well.
That's true.
It's true. It's true. And let me tell you something. If Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead was in Iraq, he would have turned the place upside down. Especially him drinking whiskey at the bar.
Yeah.
Murderhead.
Jack and Coke.
Hey, can you just imagine if Iraq had a place like the Whiskey Go-Go or the Rainbow, like where bands actually do drink, where places where you can drink. I mean, obviously everything is underground in Iraq. You have to do it underground, away from it. You don't get caught, and if you do get caught, you're gonna get persecuted
You're
severely.
screwed.
You're
You're
gonna get
screwed.
yeah. And not only that, you can't even walk around in Iraq with a freaking band T-shirt, let alone having long hair.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like, we looked at it as a luxury to have that. So a lot of things were like profiled as an accessories and not necessities. So
Yeah.
you had to throw that. So just the fact that you're trying to be in a band, you're like, what the fuck are you saying? What do you mean a band? Like, what is that entitled to? Like a band,
And
like a soccer team or like football team? What is that? And we're
Manchester
like,
United. Yeah, Manchester.
yeah, exactly. And then you'd be like, oh, this is where we gonna play rock music. What is rock music? You know? And then the community that we had looked at us as, yes, finally, when are you guys gonna play? And I remember the first show we had, we were thinking like, 20 people, 30 people max. And we ended up having really good turnout, like 300, 350 people showed up. And that's,
wow.
I remember I was so scared
Mm.
that I was like, oh my God, like, this is real, So,
Yeah.
But
so
but
yeah.
you were also afraid because if you got caught, that would be extremely detrimental to you.
Well, sometimes one of these things that I asked, like, question myself is like, when life becomes so bad that you don't really give a fuck, when most of revolutions happen like when people got nothing to lose.
Right.
Like, you literally, back then, I was a kid. I didn't think much about, you know, repercussions and stuff like that. And energy was much more outspoken than like, sense in my head. And I was driven for it. So is the guys. And naiveness. I mean, naiveness was a huge part of it. Uh, but he just didn't care. That was the last worry. I mean, sometimes I was like, I don't care as long as I'm playing. I mean, it will
Yeah.
be best, to
That-
go that way.
That's exactly what I saw in the documentary Metal in Baghdad. You basically were, let me put it bluntly, you were like the father of the band. You were trying to protect everyone. As long as we're okay, everything will be okay. Because fuck what's going on around us. We need to survive here, and we need to survive together. Because we're a unit here. If one falls down, we're all going to fall down. So
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I used to always say that the attraction of this band is it's unity, and the downfall of this band is it's unity.
yeah,
And
right.
and basically, whenever, I mean, I was the youngest one in the band, so I was like the least mature one, which probably that what helped because I always like say things that I'll fuck it, let's go
Like
for
it
it,
didn't
man.
matter.
What's
Well,
that?
We have our music. That's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're like, whenever there was like a voice of doubt, or one of the guys will address that,
Right.
I'd be like, "Don't let me punch you. I'll fucking punch you. Don't do that. Like, just fucking go for it."
Yeah.
And a lot of fights. I mean, I know we're probably the only guys back then who were like, instead of like, I say it like, instead of fighting over a girl, we'll fight over a riff.
Yeah.
We'll punch each other over a riff because we'll be like, no, but no,
That is
you
not
had,
right.
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
probably not.
not only that, you are now more relaxed, you're more aware, and more importantly, you're more mature as a human being, right? But looking at the world today, there's still a lot of chaos in the world. Whether you look at Donald Trump or what's going back home in the Middle East, or even here in Australia, there is still chaos going on in the world. How do you view the world today, Marwan, compared to what you were seeing back in 2003?
Uh, Not really so brightly, I mean, but again, you know what they say like, the optimists create the plane and the pessimists create the parachute.
Yeah.
So the way I think about it is just, okay, I actually never believed in politics, and I didn't know if that was like the anarchist in me, or just the fact that I kind of gave. It's kind of like I figured like the game is rigged, you know.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, and especially the fact that when we did Gilgamesh, the album, was so important for us, is because one of the oldest stories in the world talks about a lot of politics and talks about tyranny, and it just got to the point, and even the second the first EP, Only the Dead See the End of War. What we're trying to say is not the name also itself, the title, but it's also the fact that these things that have been said 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, that's still the same. It's just human nature, you know? As much as we have good in us, we have so much evil in us. And
Exactly.
sometimes the balance, we live in a world when now it's, I don't know if it's still the same, because just because of the internet, we have so much information and we have so much noise that we probably cannot process at a time. That's so much things that happen that basically sit down and think, and you'll be like, oh, if I listen to it, you know, I'm misinformed. If I don't listen to it, I'm uninformed. And
Yeah,
the one thing that I probably have an advantage than like some people is the music, because
exactly.
I believe that thing stayed true to me throughout my whole life and basically saved our lives.
You you
Uh,
you nailed that. That part right there, the music, it's everlasting. It unites people because there's already enough hatred in the world. And what can be a better place? People are getting offended left, right, and center. Who gives a shit? If you're there to have a good time, let your hair down, rock the place out, go to a freaking gig. Just go to a gig. Rather than being depressed on social media and go, my pants are wet, go down to the freaking gig. Support local talent, support music, and music will never die. No matter what form of music it is, it will never die. And you can get out your frustrations at a gig too. Just don't punch anyone in the face. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, exactly.
Just don't punch it. Right? You can you can do a wall of death on the dance floor, but just don't punch anyone in the face. That's all I'm asking.
That's
Right.
it's as simple as this. Like the music is it's just, okay. The problem is a lot of the words that we use been like misused and abused and became like a cliche in a way, even when you say it.
Yeah.
But the whole energy that you get from a show on the giving end and on the receiving end, or I should say, like, the two ends are giving and receiving at the same time. And the fact that the unity that brings, even for this like short amount of time, for the couple hours or 3 hours that you're gonna have, creates such an everlasting uh, residue of positivity within you that you don't experience right now when you're like what you mentioned is like being on social media or being on the phone all the time, just watching what other people do, and
Yeah.
instead of like being part of something, which is very important, which is very rewarding in a way. That that basically, like, you know the news, the politics, this and that, and then the greedy will always be greedy, and this is situation. I mean, like, it's sad, but again, Metallica, sad but true.
It is. And not only that, Damien will agree with this. It does become a burden if you just keep focusing on politics and crap that just basically does not make sense. At least music makes sense. You know what I mean? You can you can
Well,
listen to you can listen to music and it makes sense to you. It can calm you down. It can
well,
make you, yeah, go on.
Marwan, he mentioned Frank Sinatra earlier, and you know, Frank Sinatra is somebody that I've listened to and looked up to for 20 years of my life, and I'm 44 now. I'm 44, and and his music was just so touching, and some of it was a revelation to me in the way of human compassion. And I think that music is transcendent through all lifestyles, no
Oh yeah.
matter what music it is.
Oh
So
yes. Yeah.
when you bring music into the spectrum of life, it brings something to you that that other things cannot bring to your life. So when I first came across Acrassicauda, it definitely brought something to my life that was different than anything else that I had known, because they had known a life that I had not known. So
Wow.
so it was transcendent in that form. And I just I really want to thank you guys. You
Oh,
brought
well, thank you,
music
sir.
to my
Appreciate it.
life. You brought something to my life that I was unaware of at the time that I was listening to it. And the more that I've listened to it, the more that I understand you as someone who's foreign from my country, but at the same time can understand the things that I go through in life. And I think that's what music brings to everyone, is that transcendence of life and of geopolitical prospects or anything else. It's just it's such a beautiful thing, the things that music brings to your life, no matter what form that music comes in.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate your kind words, and you're spot on. I mean, like, the whole transcendence
It
fact,
is. It is.
way that that the author, or like, the songwriter or the band, they perform one song knowing one fact, or like pointing at one fact, while and you get like 10 people each interpreting that and translating that into different aspect or emotion of their life, even while understanding the message. It's a beautiful thing because it works on so many different angles that a lot of other mediums doesn't do the same thing, you know.
Right.
it's
Exactly.
it's, it's not visual, it's not something physical. It can be. I
Thing
mean, if
within
you
your
if you do
soul.
the wall, if you do the wall of death, but it's something that it's emotional, psychological, therapeutic. And I mean, again, like, for me, playing drums, that was the best therapy that I could ever ask for.
Yeah. Now, what the band done for me, Marwan, is like I've been listening to rock and metal for majority of my life. I am now 40 years of age, right? Before I turned 10, I was like a choir boy, and then all of a sudden a bolt of lightning just struck me between the ears, and I went from that to being the person who I am. Now, not trying to beat my own drum here, but I am literally a walking billboard for liking bands. I have got band t-shirts coming out of my asshole in my freaking drawer.
What's your favorite one, if you don't mind me asking? I know it's like asking which one is your favorite kid, but which one is your favorite band T-shirt?
My favorite band.
Because
Well,
because I no, your favorite band T-shirt, because I know I have one.
oh, jeez. Well, before I got into the thrash metal, my favorite band is Kiss, right? So
Band.
I used to have a shirt, and it was my favorite shirt, and I don't have it now. On the back of it had "Kiss My Ass" on it, right? And Kiss brought it, and
That's
Kiss,
perfect.
yeah, Kiss brought an album out in the '90s called "Kiss My Ass," and it was a covers album. All these bands made a cover song for Kiss. I don't have that shirt anymore, but right now I can't give you an answer what my favorite one, because I've got so many of them. I've got Metallica, I've got Megadeth, AC/DC, Gunners, Van Halen. I've got so many of them. I think I pick and choose what I want to wear different days. The only thing I don't have is a Crocodile shirt. I don't have one. So
I'll send you one. You just send me your WhatsApp.
there you
And
go.
Damien, I'll send you one too. But what's your
That
favorite
would
T-shirt?
But
be awesome.
But what I want to say
Oh,
is,
I have Blues Traveler. That's my favorite band T-shirt
Ah,
that I have. Traveler.
oh,
But
Traveler.
well,
Blues Traveler.
Marvin, I want to say this, right?
Yes, sir.
Listening to the band has, like, I'm 40 years of age. Listening to the band, even though I've been listening to all the classic Bay Area thrash metal and also from Europe as well, like a band called Tankard, and all that, right? Listening to you guys was just a breath of fresh air. And when I actually found out that you guys were from Iraq, I went, holy shit. Because around that time, when you guys were making music, not an album, just making music, you had other countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, all those having thrash metal coming out of the woodwork. And I'm saying, holy shit, it's not just the big four in America like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax. This is going global. Thrash metal, or metal in general, is going global. See, the problem that I have, Marwan, is this. A lot of metalheads pigeonhole bands. They've got to put them in a specific criteria. If it's not thrash metal, it's not metal. There's so many forms of metal. You've got death metal, thrash metal, dark metal, glam metal. You name it. Melodic metal, right? Symphonic metal. There's a lot of forms. But there are a group of fans in the world that will pigeonhole bands in a certain criteria. Me, I never do that. Once I am a fan of metal, I always be a fan of metal, and I will support all forms of freaking metal. That's my job.
Yeah, what I think what you're saying is like you're also a fan of the music and the artists themselves, uh, because uh, like I, us as a musician, we probably would have changed style, because we always like, yes, we are metalheads, but before that we're musicians, you know,
Exactly.
and
Right.
for
And music comes in all forms.
exactly, exactly. I mean, some days, at some point in life when we're younger, we were like, oh, you gotta wear black, or you gotta listen. Oh, this is not deathcore, or like this is not heavy enough. You shouldn't
Yeah.
be listening to that. But it got to the point in life when, as the music uh, becomes becomes not only uh, a novelty to you, you become like, you spending X amount of time, 6 to 8 to 10 hours at the studio every day, practicing and trying to hone your skill. You become a musician, and that's when you take the form of, oh, okay, it's music, so I'm probably going to release less heavy album, or probably going to release
Something
less
softer, something more melodic.
softer. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I remember, Damien, I just want to share a little story before we continue, right? I remember when I was doing drumming, right? Back in Sydney, New South Wales, in Australia. We used to go down to me and this guitarist used to go down to the Sydney Harbour every weekend to bus to make some money. It was just me and this guitarist in the band, all right? Even though we had other members, but it was just me and him because we wrote all the freaking material, right? All the songs. Anyway, in in one day, just me and him, we made 80 to 90 bucks a day. Just bust them. We need to make some money. And 90 bucks between the both of us, that was pretty awesome compared to what some bands are getting playing a live gig. Some of them are only getting like 50 bucks and they've got to split it up 4 ways. And they'll only get them a freaking large pizza and a six pack of beer. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. Here in it, there's a lot of places, and this is the downfall in the music business.
So yeah, again, like I wanted to ask you guys, just like a
Yeah,
perspective, like in
yeah,
terms
go
of
on.
like the music situation right now, especially with metal.
Yeah.
Uh, do you guys think it's like a good time to for metal music in general, or is it like,
Well, I'll answer that question.
like you
I'll
were
answer
saying,
that.
like the downfall?
Yeah, I'll answer this question too. I'll answer it. What I see is the music industry, and obviously you will see this, Marwan. The music industry is completely changed from what it was back in the 80s. Right?
Absolutely.
You had a lot of record labels marketing and branding the bands like Metallica, Iron Maiden, and all that. You had the record labels pumping a shitload of money behind them, right? Right now, record labels hardly do that. The only way to survive is to just keep touring. Yeah, make albums. That's great, but to make to make money or to keep yourself afloat, you got to tour. Now, here's another problem too. Not so much in America, but here in Australia, it's a massive fucking problem, right? Most of the bands do not even get played on mainstream radio. So how the hell are the fans supposed to listen to new music if the radio's not fucking doing it? Therefore, it's got to be people like Damien and myself to start up an independent radio show to be able to play this to the fans, because that's the only way it's gonna. I see it now, Marwan. It's going back to the old days where not
They play
only,
what they want.
well, not just play what you want. If you want to look up a band now, it's so easy to do. Just go on YouTube. They're not listening to radio anymore. But here's a good thing though. Here's the positive. The fans are buying vinyls again. Vinyls were taken off the shelf for so many years.
Yeah,
but
it's
ne-
becoming
but
a trend all over.
yeah, vinyls are made a massive comeback, and people are buying vinyls again. That's the positive. That is a dead set positive. Like I used to say back in the old days, growing up, music was like a fashion trend. You just got to go with the motion. Something new will come along, and we did. The 80s was glam metal and thrash metal. The 90s was alternative metal, grunge. Not the 2000s was like new metal. So it was going along. When there was a change in music, there was a change in fashion. It always goes like that, and that's the way I see music today. It's a fashion thing. People will grow out of it, and people will find new stuff to follow. But if you still remain those core fan base that will never fuck off, you've done yourself proud. That's all I'm saying. But you guys, man, from where you were back in Iraq to where you are now and continuing to make music, man, I will take the fucking bullet for you. Because there's nothing,
Thank you.
there's nothing in this world can even comprehend what you guys went through. All these other bands that started before you, like Megadeth and like Metallica, they, man, yeah, they might have lived in a freaking loft, right, and eaten, peanut butter jam
Ramen
sandwiches.
noodles.
Yeah, eating peanut butter jam sandwiches. That is nothing compared to what you guys went through. Nothing. But then again, you're not complaining either. You know what I mean? You're not
I mean,
complaining either.
what good would that do you? I mean, every now and then, but
Complaining does nothing.
yeah, no, it doesn't do anything really. It's just basically that's why you got the music too. I mean, you can complain all you can, and that's using that medium, or like talking about it, or sharing your
Yeah.
thoughts. But it's true. It is good time for music in a way that uh, I believe, because yeah, there is a lot of music. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff for free on YouTube, and but again, it's all about also at the end of the day about the circus act. Like I used to call it the freak show. You know,
Yep.
whenever we
Yep.
do a tour, we'll be like, okay, let's get the freak and the freaks in the van, and let's do the freak show. You know, and we just go and play, which is, yes, you don't make money out of it, but it's also like filtering out like a lot of things at the same
Yeah.
time. You know?
So, Marwan, can you give us an update on what the band current status is and what is happening with the band now? You currently making new music or going on a tour? What's the status?
Well, the whole thing with the band basically got to the point in 2015, 2016, where basically you slam the wall with the whole situation being touring, touring, touring. We did up till 2014. Before we start recording, we did a tour. And you get to the point when you're like, okay, uh, in terms of the metal situation, you get to the venue and you play the show, and you're really, your best bet is your merch. That's what you do. So
Yep.
right now, yeah, I mean, so right now it was very tough, especially when we got to the point when we're independent for such a long time that we're like, okay, we got to do everything ourselves. And but I still gotta wait tables at the same time because I cannot even like climb the ladder working because I need to dedicate myself to the band. But on the other hand, I need to be on the road in order to generate money. And then it got to the point when we had like two of the guys no longer with us, like not dead, but you know,
Yeah.
uh, Nashville, and
They have
then
to work.
yeah, I mean Nashville and Virginia, and me and Faisal were basically like the only ones that were kind of okay. So I just had
Is Faisal
like
still in New York?
uh, Faisal is like so there's a lot of, not to delve in too deep on that, but there's a lot of the unhashed like kind of stuff that we were talking about that you guys asked me about earlier about the childhood and stuff that comes back and sort of like bites you in the ass. And to be honest with that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I felt like all of us we needed to work on something that we were like, okay, so many things happened, but we're so much focused on the band for X amount of years that we kind of
So
neglected.
some real
Neg-
life stuff too.
yeah, no, we kind of neglected who we are, like as people. But still, we still like, I still do music till now. I'm still releasing stuff under. I just did one song that was like for the the whole revolution that it was happening in Iraq, to change the government. And between me and Faisal, I just had Faisal a while ago because I no longer live in New York, and we were working
But
on some
Faisal
music.
still lives in New York. Yeah,
Yeah. So what basically I'm trying to get him out here so we can make more music. But
that's
both of
good. And
us, yeah,
you too.
we
Ah,
kind of, yeah, both of us we kind of like whenever we get a chance we calibrate like on the collaborate like on the phone or stuff like that. We like, what do you want to do? For me, I got like my home studio here, like still try like making music every day. Uh, but in terms of like the Acrassicauda thingy, uh, I'm hoping at some point that you know we do some work together. You know, it's not happening anytime right now. But again, like regarding the guys, I don't know which one is more doable. But I know for a fact, like me and Faisal, we
Right.
always like work together in that regard. Even when we didn't have Tony for a while, like Tony left the band in 2011, and yet we still toured and did the album. But just we tried with new members, wasn't like so much great musicians, but the the whole, again, the curse with this band is the unity part of it, because we're kind of comrades in a way that we went through that stuff together. So there's like the brotherhood is kind of super intense between us. That we view other musicians like, oh, you're an outsider.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
right. I get it.
it just goes to show that now it's a balancing act. You need occupation and music to combine together as one, because if one falls down, you need something to back you up.
That's true.
And
That's
you
true.
know,
I mean, like, you get to the point. The point of it is,
yeah,
we, the last show we did, which was like for the whole immigration thing, to do donations, to send some money for the people on borders and like, refugees. So we donated a bunch of money for. I mean, we donated the show money for that cause.
yeah,
Uh, but it got to the point when you live in New York. New York is super expensive and
Super.
super expensive. I mean, like, we heard that so many times. I mean, the reason we were there at the beginning was Vice, because we're close to the label for the first couple of years. But then, honestly, I think it was insane to stay there because, I mean, I
Because it
remember I
costs
used to,
so much. It's so freaking
it's
expensive.
it's crazy. I mean, I had one practice space that was kind of like big, so it was kind of luxurious.
mm,
In terms of size, that you can, what I mean luxurious, if you can be able to have a couch with the drums, then that's fucking luxurious. And I used to pay 1250, 1,250 a month for that. And plus I'm paying for my apartment rent, plus whatever uh, necessary needs for the band, plus while I'm waiting tables, which I'm not making enough. And then we ended up like doing this back and forth for such a while that we were like, okay, I don't think we kind of like want to play with the integrity of the band in terms of what we do, because we still have a lot of things to talk about. But we don't want to just like, what you said before, Jamie, like the radio friendly kind of stuff. Not because we're against it, just
no,
because this is not who we are. And
exactly.
and again, like, this is the part of my life. I might sell out in my job, but I will never sell out in a band. And by sell out, I don't mean like, doing something that I like. It's just doing something that I don't like for the sake to be liked and to sell myself.
Exactly. So you don't want to sell yourself out for that. You want to be who you are no matter what you're doing.
I mean, I'll do it on my own. I'll do it, but I will not do it under the like the Acrassicauda kind of like, unless we all like sit down and be like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm kind of into like pop rock kind of stuff. And then we're probably gonna get the backlash. But but if we're into it, yes, but we still like want to do metal, and that's a fact.
Yeah,
So so the band, I think the best the thing that happened to the band is us being spread out and seek for jobs and whatever security, which made it kind of difficult for us to get together. But then I was talking to Faisal yesterday, and we still like every now and then be like, I'm like, dude, you gotta come out here, and we can like, do this stuff. And the same
That's
thing
a
like,
beautiful area too. You have the mountains, forests, and everything. It's just that's a beautiful area of the country too.
oh yeah, beautiful places also shoot video clips.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're in Colorado, correct?
Oh no, I'm in Texas actually.
Oh, oh well, that's
yeah.
but it's still pretty. I was
It
out in
is.
Texas just a few months ago, so I know it's absolutely beautiful there.
It's such a
Depending
huge
on
change.
if you're
I'm
in
still like
West
kind of,
Texas or this.
yeah, I'm still kind of like, adjusting with it. Like coming from New York, the hustle and bustle, it's like much quieter.
Yeah.
Are
And
you in West Texas or East Texas?
West.
Oh, okay. So you're in the more dusty, arid, dry part of Texas.
It is dusty, yeah.
Now,
Hey, I come from desert though. It's kinda
yeah,
okay with,
It's a lot like home, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Not as much
minus the
sand.
minus the fact that it's sometimes 50 Celsius back home, you know?
well, just think, Damien, with Marwan and the band, they've done a lot of touring in America, but the question should be asked: have you ever considered at one point of time to tour down under in Australia?
Oh my God. I mean, the I mean, I'll be frank with you. I'll be honest with you. If somebody showed up and was like, you know, you guys like, do like a 3 months like touring in Europe and with the shows, because the problem with us was I ended up managing the band for the 2 years or 3 years, and it was a lot of work. I
It
mean,
is.
to be
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
So,
right.
so,
Yeah.
what you're saying, Marwan? Did anyone wanted to take that role from the outside instead of yourself, or do you thought that it was better to be
No, no,
self go? Yeah,
no,
go.
to be honest, no. I mean, we didn't get an offer to
Uh, okay.
for us like to do that. I mean, like, doing with Vice and the thing with Vice, the Vice was never metal label. Vice
Yeah.
like did the movie, but then
Right.
we did 2 years still, and then we did like couple of years with a friend of ours, Rachel, and she was great. I mean, but still, it was like one man operation to do like coast to coast. So we did like the drive from New York all the way to San Francisco and back. And then we started doing the South, and we were doing like, and the Europe tour. I was trying to access the Europe kind of music scene, knowing the fact that we have fans in Germany, knowing the fact that we have fans in Spain, Australia, and so on and so forth, and even Latin America. But it was really hard to juggle all these kind of things together, work, manage the band, play in the band, and write the music, and make
Yeah.
sure, like, that you're preparing the tax. You're doing the tax at the end of the year, delivering
Right.
merchandise, going to the post office, doing
Yeah.
all this, that. And I did it for 2 years that I felt like that I was running on fumes towards the end, like the last of the year, with no uh, with nothing like being proposed in terms of like like guaranteed shows and stuff. And that's the truth of it. Like you will do it if you can, like, I would have done it, like continued doing it. I'm sure as the guys as well.
Right.
If we had some sort of, like one big band saying like, oh, okay, I want to take you guys, like, on a tour,
But well, it's like this too. You guys were in. You guys were mentioned in Metal Hammer magazine, right? One of the biggest metal rock magazines in the world. You also toured with Ministry. Surely someone, I don't know, it never happened, but surely someone should have came out and say, "Hey guys, how about going into the studio for a couple of hours and see if we can make a deal?" Because in the old days, how it used to be, you used to get signed up by a record label or get a manager when you're actually playing live. The manager will be sitting in the crowd saying, and then after your gig's finished, they walk backstage. Hey, going, bro, I'm from blah, 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 and you have a drink or two. That's what the old days is. But now, I don't think.
Hey, Jamie,
Yep.
not to interrupt, but Eric wants to come on for a minute.
Uh,
I know we're short on time. We're almost done, but Eric would like to come on for
yeah,
just
if I can
a
add
few
him.
minutes.
If I can add him. But because I don't want to. The thing is, Damien, I don't want it to go and drag on for another 2 hours when Eric comes on.
I totally understand. Marwan has other things to do, so I guess he just wants to pop on, say hello, whatnot.
Well, I'll add him. Just hold on.
That's totally your business, guys. I'm not gonna get it interfere.
Thank you so much, Marwan, for coming on. Thank
My
you
pleasure. Thank you for
telling
having
your
me.
story and being here to tell everyone just all these little intricacies about your life and the band and how things transpired. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
That's okay.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we've got Eric Spitfire Wilkinson that joined us. G'day, Eric.
What's up? What's up?
How you going, man? We've got Marwan from Acrassicauda.
I see that.
Across,
So eager.
Acrassicauda.
Hey, Damien, you call it aluminum, I call it aluminium. We'll go by that, okay?
Okay. I got
Yeah.
you.
But Marwan, it was like you guys toured with Ministry. What was that like? I mean, you guys.
Actually, we didn't tour with them. We played a show at the Best Buy Theater.
On the
called
same bill. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, Al, man, he's crazy.
And what-
He's on fire.
When did you play with Ministry? They're one of my favorites.
We played. That was in. We used to be called like Nokia Theater, and then later it was called Best Buy Theater in Times Square in New York. And that was in 2000, I would say 14 or 2015. I'm
Fairly-
not really sure.
And the whole band is still together. Ministry's all still together. Same.
Ministry have changed members over the years.
Vincent, right? That was the lead singer originally.
Al is still the singer. He went from this disco pop stuff to what we got now. So what you hear Ministry now, that was not Ministry in the 80s. No damn way.
God, it was techno pop.
Same.
Bump, 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 bump. It's totally dead.
It was totally different. It was totally different in the 80s with Al Georgeson. Man, I reckon he had a massive acid trip in the middle of the 80s because he went from disco to what he is now.
Yeah, to the industrial stuff.
Oh man, it was.
Cup. He certainly. They did something completely different, and a lot of bands started out that way. Kind of feel their way around and finding their groove.
Yeah. Well, see, Ministry had changed their members so many times, and I think one of the drummers recently passed away about 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Which one? Ministry used to have two live drummers.
I think it was the guitar player to be.
Yeah, the guitar player. Yeah.
Two bands that actually had two drummers on stage.
Yeah.
Every show almost. Did they have two shows when you played with them?
No, just one. I think one.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
I got to see them. I saw them 4 times, and all 4 times they had 2 drummers, and they had steel drums. In addition,
I got the more the merrier, huh?
Right. In addition, they were sampling stuff. They were just amazing. Tell me about your band. I know I got here late, but I want to learn more about you.
Well, we're saying what we're talking about, JB, the last thing that we touched base on.
Basically, we were talking about
the ministry. The ministry. Show.
Before you go on the Ministry, just a breaking news to the overseas listeners. Ministry will be in Australia in a couple of months' time doing Download Festival in Sydney and Melbourne. If you haven't got your tickets, please do get your tickets at all your participating outlets. Ministry was last here in Australia in 2015 for the Soundwave Festival. Make sure you go and see Ministry. The latest album, America, great album. Go and get it if you haven't got it. That came out in 2018. So, yeah, ministry, guys.
Go.
Tell me about your band.
Well, I mean, we started in 2000. We released it out like there's a lot of stuff.
Right.
There,
That's like 2 decades you're talking about.
yeah, I know. I just need like what aspect of the band that you want to know about?
Well, Jamie, are you going to upload like a clip of his band in addition to this? When you
we
premiere
are.
it?
Yeah, we are. I'll give Eric a little bit of a background. Eric, this band is from Iraq, who was in a war-torn country, and
Iraq?
Yes, and basically they formed. Well, they started around 2001, maybe a bit earlier than that, if Marwan can correct me. But heavy metal was against the law due to the regime that was going on. A lot of places that these people were performing are no longer there. They played there, but after they played there, give it about a week or two, it get bombed. And
So
it's
you're
no longer...
that he was playing in Iraq and it was illegal to play that type of music there?
Heavy metal...
Kind of.
Wow.
Heavy metal is against the law. Now, it took certain amount of years to leave Iraq, and other members went a long trip, like they went to Turkey, then to Damascus, then they came over to America. All the people in the band are in America, but what has happened over the years, because the record labels aren't signing these guys up to a major record label, because basically the music industry is kind of dead, right? Because a lot of people are pirating, and also if you want to find out about the band, just go and check on YouTube.
Well, I can tell you this, Marwan, you have freaking gigantic balls to be music that's because they chop heads off of people who they don't sometimes they disagree with them, and you're playing a type of music that is freaking against the law in Iraq. Wow, God, Jamie, thanks for bringing me on.
That's okay. That's okay. But
You didn't tell me this.
I did tell you this. You just don't pay attention.
Well, you had somebody who was based in Iraq, but I had no idea. I thought he was born there. I didn't think he was playing there. Where it's illegal.
No, they were definitely playing there, and he even alluded to the fact that he was on his way to the barber shop one day, or well, he wasn't on his way to the barber shop, but he certainly was soon. After he was stopped, asked about his long hair, and he was like, "I'm on my way to get my hair cut right now."
What was that like playing in Iraq?
I mean, I don't know, man. It's like, okay, it was definitely hot to play there, and it was crazy. I mean, people sometimes will be like, "What is this?" You gotta explain what it is.
You just think of. I live in Detroit, and there's a lot of nightclubs. Some pretty big names like the Shelter and City Club. There's some decent sized clubs here. But
imagine living in the no-go zone part of Dearborn, Michigan, and playing metal music.
Dearborn's just kind of like a little pocket, though. You're talking about the whole country of Iraq, where like the women there, where they like dancing, but
I'm talking about that little pocket of Dearborn that says it's a no-go zone. You can't drink alcohol. You can't have long hair. You can't have any of that. And playing metal music right in front of the mosque.
That's why I'm very. It's just a trip to talk to Marwan, who actually played the clubs there. Like, did the women come in where they covered from head to toe? I mean, how did that work?
We did have, I think the last one, the last show that was filmed, the documentary, we had couple audience who were females, and yeah, they did come covered actually.
So, so Marwan,
Wearing metal T-shirts, but the head
Yeah.
was covered.
so,
Hey.
Marwan,
Yes, sir.
was segregation still in place when you were still playing?
Yeah,
Still-
I mean,
Time I looked.
mean, in a
Well-
way, it was.
Like,
It is
because
here in Dearborn, man. That's
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if you are telling your partner who's a female they have to cover their whole body, they're basically enslaved. I mean, my
Yes.
wife punched me in the mouth if I told her how to dress. She'd be like, "What?" You know what I mean? So it is, and people seem to think that we're anti-Arabic or something because we're pointing out this basic fact that if you're telling women and men should be equals, they should be, together, and they shouldn't have to walk out. And it bothers me, man, Marwan. It bothers me when I'm out and I see these dudes and they're like wearing the gold chains and their wife's dressed in a freaking beekeeper suit. And I'm like, that's slavery. Like you own her. You're telling her how she can dress. Wow, it bothers me. Bothers me a lot. See that
I
happen.
mean, I'm definitely sure like everybody should have their, and we experienced that like firsthand, is everybody should have the right to, wear what they want, do their hair the way they want it, dress the way they want it. I think
Sure.
this is like the simplest form of freedom that the personal freedom that you can ask for. And it's certainly like in some regards like, uh, having that as sort of problematic, like the way you put your hair, the way you dress, the way you know using the right foot or the left foot when you walk, it's kind of things that actually cripples a lot of progress that at some point in life we had to deal with too as well.
Sure.
You know yeah, no, I see like I see like the thing that happens, and especially right now, currently, like in Iraq, which with the revolution that happened, that was led by the people, where finally like females and male like get together for one purpose, united. It's this one of the most beautiful things that I got to see like recently happened in the Middle East and in Iraq, my country in general.
You're from Iraq?
Yeah, from Baghdad.
yeah.
Interesting. And you were there when Saddam was outed?
Oh yeah, I was.
Did Iraq become better or worse after that?
Well, that's sort of like very black and white kind of thing, you know. It's for me right now. It's all shades of gray in a way. That to say like for an example, the things that you're saying like segregation and stuff like that. That we didn't. He was more on the liberal side in terms of he didn't care if you wear a headscarf or like if you drink, for an example.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like we had liquor stores that were open, you know. Uh, in terms of like the headscarf thingy, that was something that it's up to you, it's your choice. It wasn't actually sort of encouraged at that point. So if these are the things that you're looking after, then that was the situation in Saddam. On the other hand, there was like no freedom of speech. There was no other liberties that you use. So it's kind of like a situation when it's like
America's coming right now. I mean, almost the same, because we're being limited completely. There's certain things we're not allowed to say on YouTube and on other platforms now. It's becoming kind of the same. I guess my main question to you is: was it necessary for the United States of America to go in there and freaking destroy this country, bomb it, bits of it back to the Stone Age? Did it really? Was there any real change after that, or did it just cause more problems?
I mean, I honestly, I don't think it's necessary to go to war, period.
No.
You know?
No.
But on experiencing that, like I was talking to the guys, experiencing that firsthand, it was horrific. It was horrific. I mean, it's something that scars you for life. Because the image is like, if you guys like see like it's kind of like sort of like the video clip one with Metallica, you know, where like you just having these flashes that stays with you, the anxiety, the flight and fight mode, all these kind of things. I think these are things they never leave. They're gonna stay there, you know.
Well, it had to have been disconcerting for you when you went back to practice at your at your building that you practiced in, and it was just gone.
I mean, I wasn't there. I was in Damascus when I saw it on Al Jazeera, actually, on TV. That was like when I left. That was like literally about a week after I left the country. And my last stop before I leave the country, the day before I left the country, I was at that practice space. I had my drums there. We had the bass, we had the guitar, and it was me and Faisal. We're like, okay, let's do one last jam before I leave. And that was like a day or two, like before leaving. So seeing that on the news, I kind of broke down and cried because seeing that the way I caught it is because I saw somebody being taken out that I knew that he was the tailor in that building that we we became friends as because we were there for years, and he was
Yeah,
being
yeah.
taken
So
out.
you knew everybody around there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
That's
that apparently, according to the mainstream narrative, the Saudis uh, did 9/11, not, but regardless. So we decided to go bomb Iraq, just because why? Because they have the same color skin in that area, and well, we did catch Saddam with those mass destruction weapons, those weapons of mass destruction. Oh no, we didn't. So there was absolutely no reason to do what we did to your country, I guess is what I'm saying. None. Oh, 9/11 happened. It was Saudi Arabia. So let's go bomb Iraq. It made no sense. And it was all on a lie. Complete lie.
Yeah, I guess that's we were talking about the media and the way they kind of like portray things and propagandas and stuff.
Oh, they pumped up the United States of America so hardcore. It was like right after 9/11. It was,
Yeah, there was a lot of propaganda in the U.S.
it
too.
was everybody who was
So
dark or Middle Eastern. They didn't care. They could have gone and bombed any Middle Eastern country over there. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. Oh, they did. By the way, they bombed those too. But they took the people's skin suit. That's how freaking dumbed down the United States of America is. Is that they thought the color of your skin suit was your character. So Saudis did it. Let's bomb Iraq. Let's go to Afghanistan. Let's go to Sudan. As long as your skin's dark.
right, let's go everywhere.
Right. They wear turbans, so they're all the same. These people don't know the difference between Shiites and Sunnis. They have no idea. They just classify it. They put everybody into this box. It's
Yep.
just I'm fascinated that you were playing music there. First of all, that you weren't supposed to be playing, and second of all, you were there because we were watching this after 9/11. Within like a couple weeks, we were watching like look at on live TV, and they're just freaking destroying buildings and cities in front of our eyes. And I'm like, what? Why are we attacking them? What did they do? Oh, Saddam's got weapons of mass destruction. Really? But
So
he did.
we're going to bomb civilians.
Your country got bombed back to the Stone Age on a lie. And is it better now that Saddam's out? I'm not saying Saddam's a good guy. He's a gangster as hell. But is it better, worse, or about the same?
It definitely went through a lot of turmoil like after that,
Oh, when you bomb a
and
city, it's gonna be fucking worse, right?
yeah, yeah, but that wasn't like again like that wasn't the first time that we experienced that. I mean, we did for me, it's sad but true, but that was like my life growing up, because I grew up during the Iraqi-Iranian war that lasted for 8 years. And then when I was 6 or 7, there was the Desert Storm. That's back in the 90s,
Mhm.
where we got bombed, and then in 1998 got bombed again, and then 2000, and then the Civil War that erupted between
Imagine
the
that
Shiites.
guy.
And
Wow.
leaving that, but again, like, to bring it back, like, full circle, like, to music. Uh, that's all what we had. If we didn't have the music, I don't know. I mean, like, I cannot imagine it, but
Yeah.
at least
And
we had something that
yeah,
a lot of people probably now can look back and envy us for it, because
yeah,
the music was our sanctuary. And not just to say that as a cliche, that actually literally did save our life, literally
exactly.
and metaphorically.
And Eric,
Right.
I want to say this. With the bands like Metallica and all that, how they saying they all used to live in a loft eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches just to make ends meet. They had literally got nothing on this band, who were looking over their shoulder constantly, while the regime was going on, rather than these guys could not even go down the street with long hair, wearing a band t-shirt, or even just to go to a freaking restaurant to have a meal without
And they're
thinking that,
just bombed.
yeah,
Like, for
exactly.
decades,
Right.
man.
But here's the thing. This is what is such a precious story, that the music that these guys had kept the brotherhood together, and they left Iraq to come to America. But they went, some people went to Turkey, some people went to Damascus, and they all met back up again in Damascus, right? But the journey and brotherhood, because it was like a fight or fight, because they're all fighting for their freedom. They all wanted to fight for their survival. And now look at them. They came to America.
Iraq right now, or are you in the United States? Where do you live now?
I'm in Texas.
Yeehaw!
Hey, you can wear a gun without any recompense.
But what I'm saying,
Cool.
what I mentioned, but Eric, I know you came in late in the show, but what I mentioned early in the show is music brings people together, and it will never go away. Never.
Ever.
Yes.
Amen to
Yes.
that.
Yes. Music
Marwan
will.
mentioned at least he had music, because a lot of, I mean, you don't have a lot there in Iraq, especially decades ago. Having that music as an outlet is a blessing.
Exactly. And not only that, heavy metal had no boundary. No matter what race, religion, or what country you come from, you're all bonded together as one.
Yep.
And let me tell you something, folks, and I know this firsthand. You will not see people doing mass murder at a freaking metal concert. Yes, okay. Dimebag Darrell got shot on stage.
No,
Not
it's
yet.
Yeah,
Don't
but
give
hold
him
on.
ideas.
No, but hold on.
It might go from Ariana Grande to heavy metal. Don't give him ideas. Just
But heavy metal, you can do a wall of death, and you can still get up off it and shake that guy's hand. Just please, ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do not punch anyone in the face, because that is not what heavy metal is about. Leave it to the drickheads that follow other music.
I
Yeah,
can
that's
remember.
not what concerts are for.
I can remember in my early, in my teens, late teens, 20s, we could go to some of the clubs and they would allow us to freaking slam. This was back, I guess, when Nirvana was coming out, and later Ministry, early but later, past the bump, when they got heavy, like just one. And everybody was cool. You know, you slammed and then you picked each other up. Now, pretty much in the Detroit area, it's outlawed, like at any clubs. If you went to like a big venue, like DT Energy or a big venue, you could do it there because you have a huge area. But in the bars, no, they won't let you even do it anymore.
We do it here in Australia. We literally ram the shit out of. We don't care if the bar's only a little jukebox. We'll find a place to mosh. Oh,
But in
yeah.
the bars in general, like the smaller ones or kind of bigger ones, it's the outdoor venues is cool to do. I just took my son to his first concert, Marwan. He just turned 18,
Really awesome.
and him and his dad came to the. Guess what his first concert was? Just take a wild guess.
Slipknot.
Take a wild guess, guys.
I would double that. Slipknot.
Slipknot.
Yeah, how did you know? How the frick did you know that?
Oh
That
my
was
god.
us.
Yeah.
Cause I said it.
Yeah.
Because he said it.
Oh, well, I didn't hear it. So good guess. But no, right. So now, as my kid gets older, his first concert ever was Slipknot. He was like,
That's pretty awesome. That's awesome.
Crazy.
I love Slipknot.
all right. I was like,
I got
son,
a buddy of mine.
you wanted
I
to
got a buddy of mine who actually went to high school with the lead singer of Slipknot.
Corey Taylor, yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, he
You went to
went
school with
Corey
Corey
Taylor.
You did?
He went to school with him. Yeah.
Really? Did he wear that freaking crazy mask while he was in school? No, I'm just kidding. Just
No.
I mean,
There is
actually,
hard
one
rock
of the,
music.
actually
there
one
really
of
is.
the greatest thing was like Jay Weinberg from Slipknot. We played together the show that we did as a donation for like displaced and immigrants. So like shout out like for Slipknot and Jay Weinberg for being such an awesome guy and awesome freaking drummer.
And you were taking donations for immigrants? Did you say that?
Yeah, we put a show together that was the last minute actually. We weren't responsible for that show. It was a band called I Kill Ya based in New York that they were
I know
trying
who
to show,
it is.
and they accepted to take us on like for the last 3 days before the show and turn it to a whole donation. And we got Alex Skolnick from Testament who played also for the same cause of the donation, and Jay Weinberg from Slipknot too. And
Wow.
the whole bands, everybody was just like, okay, we'll donate the money, just send it to the, International Rescue Committee or like an NGO or United Nations, whatever. Not much, but we're like, just
Well, Marwan, are you still in contact with him?
yeah. I mean, I just texted him the other day. I was like, let me know when you're in Texas. He was like, yeah.
Wait, we want him on the show.
I'll try, man. I'll try my best. I'll ask him. I know he's a busy guy.
I know.
He's
Yeah,
super talented
I know.
between the painting and stuff.
We know how you guys are busy. We just want to get every rocker we can on the show so that we can hear all their stories, so that our listeners can hear their stories, and proliferate everything that is about rock and everything that is about their lives, so that people understand what it is.
Well, musicians, they tend to be, we know tons of them, from Max Egan to Vinny Eastwood to Marwan to, there's so many people who are awake, who are musicians. Now you have the musicians who are like all about climate change. Like, hey, let me just stick my hand out in front of that train and stop it. Like, there's no stopping climate change. Climate change happens. It's a natural process of the earth. But you're actually an awake musician, and I find the heavier bands, even down to black metal, I'll say that too, really have a good grasp on an awareness about what's going on in the world. Like, they don't look up and go, oh, look at those contrails in the sky that last for 5 hours. There's geoengineering going on. 9/11 was an inside job. I'm just making assumptions, Marwan. But the musicians I've met, I'm a musician also. So is Jamie. So is Damien. They seem to be awake. They seem to have a grasp, and I think it's because they're really in touch with their soul. They're really in touch with. They're not from the outer. They're on the inner. They have something, some extra chromosome maybe in them, because the skin suit doesn't matter. But
totally, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'd go insane without music myself. I just got to go insane.
It's a
If I was in
therapy, man.
Iraq, I'd go insane probably with music. But I regress. Go ahead.
It's a therapy. It's a therapy, and it's like the thing is like with the musicians,
Yeah.
and you're putting your heart and your soul. You're exposing yourself out there to
Right.
people, and that you don't know, and whatever idea that you have alone when you're in your most vulnerable time, sitting
Right.
alone, that you're probably not willing to share that state, and ends up being a song that you throw out there for people,
Right.
and people smart enough like to see, like they can see through that.
Right. Now, Damien, man, the job is yours. Where can they find us now, man?
You can find us at the Rocker Diaries on YouTube, and soon we will have our own website, which will be monetized, of course. You'll be able to become a member, get a T-shirt and a mug and whatever, and you can also find us sometimes at the Southern Truth on YouTube. We, of course, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications if you want to hear further content from us. And we're here to alleviate the stress and accentuate the mind. So
Those are big word scores right there. Scrabble. You
I
scored
buy
you
it.
scored.
I buy it.
just and
But, guys, I want to say thanks to every single one of you guys for supporting last week's episode. Todd Howard, we want to applaud Todd Howard for coming on. And, man, I know for a fact, Marwan, I spoke about that we were going to have you on, and the story that you're going to talk about. Todd Howard is looking forward to listening to this show. I know that. He sent me a message about it. So, your story of the band and where you came from has gone global, right? There's no doubt about that. But to listen to what was actually said in this episode, I think we're going to impact a lot of people that haven't already heard the story. And I think your story personally, and on survival, because you guys were in survival mode for a long time. But now, man, the world is at your feet now.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. It's been great, and it's been a pleasure. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. And
thank you for coming on, Marwan, and telling your story. It's such a fantastic story, and
Yep.
I loved hearing it.
I'll
Now,
have to go
Mo-
back and hear the story because I came on late. I didn't hear anything before this, but I assume if you're on with these guys, you're probably awake and you have a good story to tell. So
appreciate
Now-
it. Thank you.
Now,
Pleasure,
Mo-
pleasure
Your
meeting
brother.
you.
Yeah, now,
too.
Marwan, just stay with us. We're just going to wrap up. Catch us next week on the Rock Diary, folks, and we'll have someone else next week. Catch you later.
welcome to the resistance. Peace.